If you've ever worked late into the night, you understand that the darkness can take on a weight of its own. In the stillness, your mind starts to drift, playing tricks on you with shadows and silence. But sometimes, it's not just the play of imagination. Sometimes, it's something much more sinister and real. Tonight, you'll hear true horror stories from those who kept solitary vigils, only to discover they were never alone. Welcome to The Dark Witness, where the fears of the night breathe life into the confessions of those who've faced them. I worked the night shift as a receptionist at a small, unassuming hotel, the kind that welcomed more road-weary travelers than tourists seeking adventure. As I settled into the familiar routine, the rhythm of the shift followed a mundane cadence, the occasional chime of the front desk bell echoing hollowly, the soft hum of vending machines buzzing in the dim corners. Yet, on one fateful Tuesday, something in the atmosphere changed. The night felt quiet, with the clock inching toward the haunting hour of 3 a.m. I was engrossed in my book when I sensed him, a figure standing outside the glass doors. He wore a dark hoodie, his hands buried deep in the pockets, obscuring his face in shadow. A cold wave of apprehension washed over me. I attempted to focus on my tasks, but he remained there, steadfast, watching. My thoughts spiraled into a whirlpool of unease. Surely, he was waiting for someone, maybe he was harmless. But those thoughts did little to put me at ease. Minutes dragged on in the silence, and with each fleeting glance at the door, I felt the pressure of his gaze like icy fingers tracing along my spine. My instinct screamed at me to reach for my phone, to call someone, anyone. What would I even say? There's someone outside my hotel? When a car pulled up around 4 a.m., my breath hitched momentarily in relief as the figure turned and walked toward it. My heart raced, convinced the nightmare had ended. But that relief was fleeting. For the next few nights, the pattern became an unsettling routine. The same man appeared at 3 a.m., never once crossing the threshold to the sanctuary of the hotel. Just standing there, a statue of malice, his eyes pinning me down with an unsettling chill that felt almost calculating. One night, a surge of courage compelled me to confront him. As I approached the door, I suddenly heard it, the scraping sound of fingernails against the glass. My breath caught in my throat, a visceral panic gripping my insides. I stumbled back to my desk, desperate to ignore the insistent scratching that now filled my ears. He stepped closer, a mere shadow now, illuminated by the dim glow from the lobby. The pallor of his face shocked me. It was gaunt and elongated, as though he had been deprived of sustenance for days. A shiver of pity swept through me, but it quickly twisted into an overwhelming sense of dread. There was something deeply wrong with that expression, something profoundly unsettling. Was he lost? Or was he unhinged? Just as I contemplated calling the police, he turned sharply and disappeared into the enveloping night, swallowed whole by the darkness. My heart sank as the next morning dawned. When I reviewed the security footage, I was greeted with a chilling realization: he was never recorded on camera. No check-in, no trace, no existence. Though I never encountered him again, the question of his identity lingered like a ghost. Who was he? Did he wander through other places as well? And deep down, did I really want to uncover the answers? The shadows held onto their secrets tightly, leaving me grappling with uncertainty.
Working nights at a convenience store presents its own sinister challenges. During my late shifts, those hours when the world outside seemed muted and distant, I developed a rapport with the regulars, the ones who brought a glimmer of normality amidst the eerie quiet. However, there was one who never fit. It started with a fleeting glance. A man entered one night, thin as a reed with hair that fell in untamed strands around his face. He wore oversized clothes and perpetually pulled a baseball cap down low, stretching over a brow that seemed perpetually furrowed. I caught him watching me closely as I stalked the shelves, his gaze an unrelenting weight against my back. I brushed it off at first. Perhaps he was just tired. Night after night, he returned. He lingered by the register, surveying me with an intensity that set my spine on edge. He never purchased anything, becoming a fixture in my periphery that made my skin crawl. I could feel his eyes trailing my movements, studying me. Despite my efforts at small talk, he never spoke, merely nodding as if there was something festering beneath the surface. Each time I stole a glance his way, he remained rooted in the same spot, a sentinel shrouded in mystery. My anxiety prompted me to keep the phone within arm's reach, just in case. A week slipped by, each visit heightening my anxiety. Same time, same peculiar questions about products he never intended to buy. Do you have this brand? What's the best fuel for my car? It felt like a dance of provocation, yet I refused to engage. Something in his demeanor whispered danger. On one harrowing night while I was locking up, I hesitated as I glanced back. There he was again, a shadow standing just outside the door. His face, obscured by the darkness, felt suffocating. I longed to seek refuge behind the register, to call the police, but I hesitated. What exactly was he doing that warranted such fear? Then the moment came, a voice cut through the night. "I know you." Those words sent a chill through my core. My stomach twisted in knots. How did he know my name? Panic surged suddenly. I turned on my heel, sprinting back into the store, the bell above the door jingling with cruel amusement. I fumbled to lock the door, my hands trembling as I called the police. They provided reassurances, but my confidence waned as I watched him inch closer. But for what purpose? Did he simply want conversation? My imagination spiraled, conjuring images of obsession and madness. When the police arrived, he had vanished as swiftly as he had come. I relayed my experience, but they had little concern for the cloaked threat lurking in the night. That's the haunting reality of the night shift. Familiarity breeds comfort in the shadows, yet the unknown remains ever elusive.
As I worked late nights at a gas station on the outskirts of town, I adapted to the ebb and flow of late-night customers. The gas station, usually bustling during the day, descended into an unsettling desolation once night gripped the sky. The flickering fluorescent lights cast uneasy shadows along the pavement, where only the faint sound of wind and the distant barking of a dog could be heard to disrupt the silence. One haunting night, while cleaning the windows in the dim light, I noticed a peculiar anomaly. A car parked at the edge of the lot, an old sedan devoid of license plates. The engine softly hummed, the headlights inexplicably dark. It radiated a sense of dread, a lingering paralysis that made every nerve in my body stand on edge. Customers passed by, but the presence of the car loomed, deliberate and unnerving. I tried to dismiss my worries. Perhaps the driver had just stepped out. Yet, as the minutes stretched into an hour, the sense of being watched coiled tighter around me, a vice I couldn't escape. Around 2 a.m., I glanced out again. There it sat, idling without a driver, an empty shell cloaked in the surrounding darkness. An odd compulsion pulled at me to confront whatever lay hidden behind that silhouette. Perhaps it was the innate challenge of the night's shadows beckoning me forth to combat the encroaching dread. As I stepped outside, the cold air slapped against my skin, thick with the scent of gasoline. Each gravel crunch underfoot echoed in the stillness. The car loomed larger with every cautious step I took, its emptiness vast and intimidating. When I reached, a figure flickered into view behind the windshield. My skin prickled with apprehension. "Hello," I called into the void, my voice trembling. "Are you okay?" Nothing but silence met my inquiries. The figure remained Still and unyielding, eyes locked ahead, lost to a world unseen. Tension rippled through me as primal instinct flared to flee. But where could I go? I felt ensnared within the malevolent grasp of the shadows. Suddenly, he turned just slightly, his head tilting toward me. That minimal movement sent icy tendrils coursing down my spine. Instinct overtook rational thought. I stumbled back, almost falling in my haste, barely escaping that loveless gaze. After rushing into the store, I locked the door behind me, my heart racing like a caged animal. Through the window, I watched the car, its occupant still a statue, unmoving. Minutes melted into eternity as the tension in the air thickened, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. Finally, the car rolled away into the night, a specter fading into darkness. To this day, I hesitate every time I pump gas, gripped by that visceral fear. Was he just another lonely soul adrift in the night? Or had I nearly become a target for someone more foreboding? The weight of uncertainty lingers like fog, clinging to my nerves.
I was working alone at a nondescript motel one night, fully prepared for whatever unexpected elements could unfold during my shift. Seasoned by the solitude of the night shift, I thought I had encountered all that could go wrong. Yet, that night would defy my expectations. The night began mundanely. The fluorescent lights hummed softly as I settled into a magazine. The quiet surrounding me promised a staple of normality, but around 1 a.m., an unexpected knock at the office door shattered that calm. No one should be checking in at this hour. My heart quickened with apprehension. I moved to the door cautiously and peered through the small glass window, but no one stood there. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling in the silence. The only response was an unsettling echo of my own words. Perhaps it was a prank. I considered to dismiss the creeping fear, but who would joke about such things in the middle of the night? I retreated back into the quiet sanctuary of my desk when the knock sounded again, this time with urgency. It felt desperate, as though someone was in distress. My mind grappled with the notion to call the police. The reality of potential danger seeped into my consciousness. After a long moment of hesitation, I carefully opened the door. The hallway was shrouded in darkness, an overwhelming suffocation of shadows wrapping around me. I scanned the corridor, but all that met my gaze were eerie silhouettes and fleeting shadows. Then I heard it, laughter. An unsettling sound rolled down the hall, soft but guttural, freezing me in place. Was it a cruel joke? I stepped outside, calling out into the void again, met only with the silence of that oppressive darkness, thick enough to nearly swallow my voice. In that moment, I wheeled around, catching sight of a shape crawling beneath my desk. I froze, paralyzed, the raw panic rising as the figure, hunched and moving inhumanely, made slow, deliberate advances. "Who's there?" I gasped, the question barely escaping my lips as instinct pushed me backward. The figure continued its unnerving crawl, unperturbed by my presence. A scream ripped from my throat as I turned to run, propelled by sheer terror. I fled down the long corridor, every echo amplified, the adrenaline pounding in my ears. When I burst into the office, I fumbled for the phone, my hand shaking violently against the keypad. It felt like an eternity until the police arrived, but I detailed everything I had witnessed. They searched the premises, but found nothing. No one had been there. What haunts me even now is that fleeting whisper of uncertainty. Who had been hiding beneath my desk? What were they after? I could feel the weight of their invisible gaze long after they had vanished, leaving behind a knot of fear. With the clock still echoing 3 a.m., my mind ruminates on shadows that flicker at the edge of my vision. Every time someone walks past in the stillness of the dark, I wonder what lurks just beyond my sight. That night was a reminder. I wasn't alone. I had never truly been alone.
As these tales fade into the recesses of the night, it becomes increasingly difficult to dispel the lingering dread. Those who conceal themselves in the shadows watch, biding their time until they can enter the realm of the living once more, unseen, until it is too late. Night shifts do not conclude as dawn breaks, they etch themselves upon your soul, and the fears they conjure will not easily dissipate. So if you find yourself awake in the dead of night, remember, sometimes, what watches back from the shadows isn't simply imagined. If you're still here, perhaps fate has guided you to hear these stories. Subscribe to The Dark Witness, but don't say you weren't warned.